Hello, mummers. Back in the office, and today I'm going to have a little chat to you about where do I start. We've had an influx of new members into this group, so if I haven't actually tagged you in the welcome post yet, go over to the top pinned post section and watch that. That'll just give you the lowdown on everything that happens inside this group. And this does really rely on your feedback to have the content that is most helpful to you produced. And this is a big question at this time, which it was a no-brainer. I suppose a lot of mums out there are starting something, and you may have started something already. Who knows? But here's just out of, I suppose, experience and seeing many different people start and succeed or fail. These are the pieces of advice that I would give to anybody trying to change their body shape, start a new healthier lifestyle in 2021. And it always begins with considering where you may have failed in the past, because a lot of the time the clues are left in those experiences from before, which are often forgotten, right? And if you're not focused on where you keep failing, then you only end up doing the same thing over and over again, which is, it's insanity, right? So here are a couple of reasons a lot of people will fail. The first being that you tackle too much too soon, right? So you work yourself up to this point where you're like, right, I'm going to start, and it's in that motivation and in that kind of wake where you take on exercising every day, eating 6 meals a day, doing all of this stuff that doesn't necessarily move the needle. And when you don't see the result from all the effort you're putting in, well, you stop, right? So too much too soon. The next is not starting in the right place. Okay, you can start with 101 different changes, and all of them will lead to different outcomes. But I'll have you consider that there's one place that you need to start to actually follow through and have it become a habit, a routine, a sustainable process that you can keep up. Okay, and another reason is making too large of an improvement at each step. So you may start out small, but then you might have this runaway effect where you kind of blur out, you change all of this stuff, you get to the end, you've got the result, but you don't necessarily like the lifestyle that surrounds that result. So here are a couple of things that you can do to make sure that you don't fail again. The first being that getting clear on exactly what you're doing right now. This step alone is probably one of the most important parts of actually succeeding, because it gives you a foundation, it gives you a baseline to work from. If you go from doing stuff, right, to going and following this meal plan or this program, the gap between it is too large. You don't know what you've changed, you can't necessarily measure it, and then everything kind of is it's all or it's none. So the best way to figure out what you're actually doing right now is just diary, write a 7-day meal record, write down everything you eat and drink and the movement that you do for 7 days without intentionally trying to change anything. And this is really hard, because as soon as you start to become accountable, and as soon as you start to write stuff down, that's kind of when you start to improve things. You wouldn't go and have a big bottle of wine if you're going to write it down in a journal, okay? And it's that problem that makes the whole process of getting clear really ineffective. So if you can be transparent with yourself and you can kind of give zero F's and just write down what you do, you're going to be 10 times more likely to make the right changes. And if you see that you've written down, you've had 3 nights of the week where you've gone and had a bottle of wine, well, it's very clear then what you need to change. Some other things to consider though is, what do you need to succeed? You see a lot of mums will say to me, how do I find more time? I'm lacking in energy, or where do I get the motivation from? These things are like fuel, they're resources, they're very basic, but if you don't have them, then you don't move. Okay, so how can you start in the right place so that you do get the motivation, you do get enough energy, you do get enough time to do it all, right? In my experience, for a mum who's got kids who needs to make these changes, the starting point, it comes back to getting clear on why you want to do it. If you're going out to just look better, well, you're not going to have much motivation when it comes time for your efforts of looking better getting in the way of being a mum, or getting in the way of something else in your life that holds more importance than just looking better. The thing is with training for looks alone, it may have been important when you're looking for that special someone in your life. It may become important again if you are single, but for most human beings, there comes a point where training for looks alone isn't enough to kind of carry you through. If you start to look at, all right, well, how's this going to improve the quality of my life? How is it going to improve the quality experience of the people around me? Am I going to have more patience for my children's emotional needs? Am I going to have more connection with my daughter who's 10 and starts dancing and is kind of lost at dancing until you go in there and you show her what you can do because you're fit, you're strong, and then she's kind of like, oh yes, mum inspires me, right? So this is where motivation comes from. If those things aren't important to you and you're just chasing this physical result, then you're only going to ever get maybe 2 or 3 weeks in. The next step is to find some more energy, because without energy, well, you don't do anything extra, and I'm going to have you consider that you're kind of full to the brim right now. The energy that you have is equal to the responsibilities and the capacity and the things that you do every single day. So if you want to do more, to get more, you need more energy. Right, this is why starting with improving your sleep quality, your habits around bedtime, is the first step in physical changes. Yep, mindset starts with commitment, with clarity, with your values and that. But physical changes, well, you need to focus on improving your sleep quality, because if you can do that, you wake up better the next day, you're more likely to eat the healthy breakfast instead of skipping it and grabbing a muffin because you're too tired to be planned or prepared and so forth, right? So without rattling on and having this take up the next half an hour of your time, I want to wrap up the entire where do I start conversation. First of all, get clear on where you failed in the past. Avoid that, because you're going to fail again if you don't avoid it. Second of all, get clear on what you're actually doing right now, because what you're doing right now holds the secrets. It holds the path for what you currently have, so that then you can look at that and say, all right, well, I want the opposite of it. So what's the opposite of this? What's the opposite of that? This is probably the most effective way of doing things, because you can punch your weight, your height and everything into a calculator. It'll spit out a number at you, but it's not going to solve those everyday problems that you have in everyday mum life. So figure out what you're actually doing habitually right now, okay? And start in the right place. Start in a place that's going to give you more motivation, more energy. And I forgot to mention the time thing, but in terms of time, well, there's heaps of ways to make more time for yourself. One of the biggest wastes of time is cooking dinner every single night. If you can cut that back into just half, so you're cooking every second night, well, you'll have an extra night there where you can eat, and then you can go for a run, play with the kids in the front yard, go to the gym if you get some time to yourself at that time of day. I don't know what you might choose to do at that time, but the biggest waste of time is actually cooking every single night, chopping food every single night. And you'll either be in this situation where you're like, all right, I'll cook tonight, or I don't feel like cooking, I'll get takeaway, which again is a whole new conversation.